All right, welcome back to the Money Advantage podcast. This is Rachel Marshall and Bruce Wayner. You see two familiar faces and one that is an amazing guest that we are excited to bring to you today, Chaz Wolfe.
Whoop, whoop. Thanks for having me, guys. I appreciate the opportunity to be here and have this incredible conversation with you guys.
Awesome. Well, I wanted to bring you on the show, Chaz, for multiple reasons. One, I was so honored and pleased to be able to meet you and connect a couple months ago, just hear about the amazing work that you have going on with Gathering the Kings. I see you're representing with your t-shirt there.
Yeah.
And I love what you're doing, what you're building in the world, how you're helping entrepreneurs, how you're helping people grow businesses and amazing, strong families, and really build an exceptional life. And so we wanted to bring you on the show and talk about that.
Yeah, let's do it. I'm excited that you're excited because I just had a show on our podcast with a mentor and friend of mine, and we talked about success for a couple of years, had him on the show a couple of times. But when you really think about these things that we're talking about, it most people just don't grab a hold of this. And so if you're listening right now and you're already, tuned in to Rachel and Bruce and what they do, like you're part of the 2%. So welcome. I'm excited to be here and add value.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, Chaz, let me just give a little bit of background and context for where we're going in the conversation today. If you're listening to the podcast, you are free to jump in, ask questions. And as you know, we go all over the place with our conversations, but it's going to be really meaningful and valuable for you today. We really want to help you to do what Chaz has done. Here's why you need to listen in and listen up. So he's founded Gathering the Kings, and he's a serial entrepreneur. He's going to tell you all about this. He's an investor. He's a master of scaling businesses. And you'll hear that he has not just built $1 million business, but multi-million-dollar ventures across multiple industries. And he's helping entrepreneurs to really not just thrive and scale and grow in business, but also to fire on all cylinders in every area of life, which is so important to not be unbalanced and say, hey, I've got the financial success, but every other area of my life is struggling and miserable. So I love that this is the mission that you're on. And so you're helping entrepreneurs to really create and live that exceptional life. So
Yeah.
today
Yeah.
we're
That's
going
our
to dig
mission.
into that.
Yeah, let's do it because I mean I think it's a worthwhile work, like you said. So I appreciate you kind of recognizing that. But I've had a lot of success. Cool, sure. I'm sure a lot of people have. I don't think that makes me special at all. But what I realized many years ago was that if I was going to live to my full potential, that it required winning in all areas, as we call it. And this exceptional life is just the picture of winning in all areas, and winning not being perfect, but like pushing for the next level, in my business, my finances, my health, my faith, my lifestyle, my marriage, my family, all of those aspects that we talk about. We call them the dimensions of kingship. But yeah, we're igniting kings and queens to live the exceptional life. This is what we do.
That is awesome. So, as we're getting started, before we dive into your backstory, Bruce, I just love to hear your perspective at the beginning of a conversation because you're coming from a little bit of a different lens. And just why should our listeners pay attention to this conversation today?
Well, I think I was thinking about this before the show, and I think the number one thing is that a lot of people think that they want to be an entrepreneur or a business owner, and Chaz, we actually well, at least I have a distinction between the two. A business owner is somebody that's bought a job, and they're often the lowest paid person in that job,
Sure.
and it's because they don't continually look at trying to innovate and make the processes better, not only for their clients but for themselves. An entrepreneur is actually on a journey to make the offering or offerings the best they can possibly be with constant innovation, and knowing that constant innovation is also going to bring more peace and solace within them,
Yeah.
and so that they can live their best life. But a lot of people don't distinguish the difference, and they also are looking at a situation where, oh yeah, this sounds exciting, and I want to get away from this. But they also don't understand that the commitment is also very rewarding, but it also can be much more frustrating and time and emotional draining than it is just in a W-2 job.
Oh, for sure.
But people see it as something that they want to aspire to. But that was kind of the my kickoff question for you today is, how do you coach people or advise people when they say they want to have this life of entrepreneurship, um, but they really have to look inside of them and see if they have what it takes to do that?
Yeah. I think the word that comes to me specifically as you're talking about all that is obsessed. And I think kind of by nature, entrepreneurs, business owners, people that want freedom, let's just maybe put everybody into the same bucket of I don't fit into a box, right? Like W-2 is the box, if you will. And then, I didn't really fit into that. So what do I need to do? I didn't fit into school. I didn't fit into the job. Maybe I've been fired, whatever it is that they're thinking. And they're like, you know what? I got to write my own story. And they're over here writing their own story. And it's because they have a level of obsession. A lot of times people that do well in business are addicted to things, and sometimes they're addicted to not so good things before business. But we all have this obsessive nature. And I would just challenge that person to think, well, I mean, that's what it's going to take. Is to be all in, right? Obsessed, all in, however you want to phrase this. In order for you to have success, Napoleon Hill says in Think and Grow Rich that you have to put everything back of the goal, everything. In order to have it, you have to be singularly focused and you have to put everything behind it. Now, the unfortunate part there, Bruce, is that me and many others make this jump into entrepreneurship and we go, okay, great, success or bust. I'm obsessed, I'm all in, and I'm going to do it. And then what we forgot was that my family, my kids, my wife, my health, my faith, my lifestyle, all these other things that really are important and are part of the equation, I put back of the goal, like Napoleon Hill says. And I had a definite chief aim or a definite purpose of getting this business off the ground and making money and coming out of the striving and into thriving. And all that's cool. That's fine. But it's like level one, and unfortunately there's so many people, even if they are the right person, like you're saying, they figure that out, that they're obsessed and they maybe have a business or two or three or whatever. That next level and then the next and the next and the next and the next usually don't have to do with business, and sometimes it's the reverse. Sometimes people need to actually press into the other things in order to have success in business. A lot of times, especially for men, they don't have a big burning desire to go win because they don't have a wife and kids to go take care of. And that's statistically proven. That's not my opinion. Married men with children press harder and make more money statistically. And so, but why is that? It all comes back to drive and that ambition and that focus, that obsession, that is it willing, or am I willing to do what it takes? Basically your question. I don't know if I have a matrix of am I willing to do the work? Am I, okay, check, I'm an entrepreneur or I'm a business owner. I don't know if I've got a matrix for that. But if you have the thing beating inside of you that just is more, not so much in a discontentness, right? Because we got to be content in what we've got. I'm not ungrateful, but if I'm done, then ugh. If I'm done learning, done growing, done with more, I don't want any more, then what's the purpose of me being here would be my thoughts, So we've got a phrase inside of Gathering the Kings where it's grateful but not done. I can be in this place, but absolutely I desire more. And so if you're like that, that's what I would say, Bruce, is the person listening is no, I have to have more. I must have more. I'm demanding more out of not just my business and money. Okay, yeah, we all want more business and more money. But what does the next level look like for your marriage? What does the next level look like for your health? And we start pressing on all of those things, especially at the same time, and you start looking around going I'm freaking winning. Not perfect by any means at all. But that's still the recognition of there's always going to be multiple levels to go to. And I'm kind of obsessed with it,
We call that not having the arrival syndrome in the infinite banking space. So Nelson Nash, who wrote Infinite Banking, or the script on becoming your own banking,
yeah.
which was Becoming Your Own Banker, yes. He had this phrase that if you have the arrival syndrome, if you say, I've arrived, then you become unteachable, you become scarce in your mindset, you can't see value in anything beyond your own, beyond yourself. And so at that point, then you stop growing, which means you're actually declining and dying. So I love that you're talking about this idea of having contentment, because we need to be grateful. We need to be thankful for where we are, what we've accomplished, what we have. If you're disgusted with everything that you've not yet created, you're probably not going to create the thing, right? And so you're content, but you're in a position of continually desiring to have more come out of you and to become more and to do more and to grow into everything
Yeah.
that we're intended to.
You guys run, businesses, and you guys know marketing like I do. And so a lot of times what we're talking about isn't enough. Now, for a very small percentage, right? For like the 2% we were talking about, and where success is not just a mere preference, but I'm demanding it, right? So that story that we've just talked about of like reaching for your potential and having it all and living the exceptional life, all these things, that makes sense to them. But most people are motivated in the opposite, right? They're motivated by fear, and they're motivated by, well, if I don't do this, what am I missing out on? And so that's maybe the picture that I would paint for the rest of the listeners, which is if you do quit, if you do slow down, if you do give up, if you don't press, even if you had success, okay, cool. All those things that you just said, Rachel, are the answer. It's I'm no longer growing. I'm no longer learning. I don't have any desire. I'm going to basically just sit on the couch and chill. I don't know of any entrepreneurs that really think like that, you know?
Yeah.
And then for the ones that really can grab a hold of this winning in all areas factor, this is a game that never ends. And so I think we get addicted to the game, right? The game of business and money and moving things around. And it's like, ooh, I like this game. I like to win, you know? But that game isn't about business and money. It's about people and relationships and strategy and components, right? All of that plays into my marriage and in my kids and of course in my health. Like there's all these little factors and little puzzle pieces. And if you can really see life like that, it's like, oh man, this game never ends and I get to keep playing. Let's go. You know what I mean?
That's awesome. Actually, there's two things that really come to mind about that I just want to comment on what you're sharing. And then I want to dig into your story. So there's this idea that, and I honestly don't know where it came from, but that for a man to really become his greatest potential, he really needs to bear the burden and the weight of responsibility. And it just really fits into what you were just saying. I think there's that way out that for a man is I'm going to not step up under this responsibility. I'm going to hand off the
Right.
responsibility to someone else or be passive. I think the woman's challenge is the opposite, maybe overtaking men and taking too much responsibility. But I think what's really interesting is this goes into a book I'm reading about parenting, and I'm not sure what I think about the whole book yet, but it's called Hunt, Gather, Parent. And this whole idea is that kids in many cultures all throughout history, besides in the West, have this natural way of stepping into being helpful. And how can we get kids to do things without nagging and chores and checklists and all the things that we normally are struggling with? And it
Right.
just talks about giving them more responsibility. If you have a kid that's acting out, they need more responsibility. That was the line. And I was like,
Yep.
that is powerful. So
Yeah.
that kind of falls in line with what you're saying. If you're going to be a king, you need more responsibility, right?
Yeah, I think that, I mean, we've got this kind of phraseology. It's in our contract. It's in several things that we do. But the king or queen, because we've got both, and both are studs and studettes. But the king or queen are really the only ones that actually know how heavy the crown is, right?
Mm.
And that weight of responsibility that you're talking about is heavy. And there's a documentary out right now on Queen Elizabeth from from Britain, and she was the longest monarch and all kinds of cool stuff there. And so Julie and I are working through that, but she just got coronated, and this weight of the crown, the physical weight, but then also they're describing this weight of responsibility and governing well and making good decisions, because man, there's a lot of people that are impacted by that crown and the decisions that come from that. And so when you put yourself in that position, king, queen, entrepreneur, business owner, mom, dad, brother, sister, community leader, all of those things, the weight is real. And the entrepreneurs that are listening right now, they know exactly what I'm talking about. When they've sat at their desk by themselves, making a really tough decision on I'm going to move this over because I can't not do payroll because I got to take care of my people. And so therefore I'm going to cut this in my own life or over here, or I'm going to move this around. And those are just really hard decisions, and we've all had to make them, and we've had to, juggle things. What I would say to that person though, is that this is actually why GTK exists. Gathering the Kings as a community exists because when we carry the weight together, it's like, oh, you actually have the same issues. We don't have to sit at the desk by ourselves, like scrounging through these difficult, tough, decisions on our own. We can simply just be in a place where it's like, I'm not the only one going through this. And that might sound like, kind of foo-foo and a little bit like, like therapy, but for you to have a place where you think I'm crazy, I'm the only one, oh my gosh, this is so heavy. And then you get into a room, you're like, oh wow, like that dude's got way bigger decisions and that chick is freaking crushing it. And my crazy becomes normal. And it's like, oh, well, the weight just got lifted. And now I'm inspired to freaking just go, It doesn't make it necessarily any easier, but the inspiration or the ignition that happens inside of me just by being around the others without even me learning anything, no tactics, no strategy, no nothing. Of course, that happens too, but just seeing that and going, oh, this is actually as normal. Oh, I'm supposed to feel this way. I'm supposed to handle these big decisions. Good. Let's roll.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, Chaz, I mean, there's just that human need for people to see us. And I think we diminish that or minimize it or think that it's really not that important, but
right.
Different people do have different things that are going on in their life. And when you have somebody who really does resonate or really does understand, then it gives you that courage to keep going. And I think we all need the people who are great thinkers around us to continue to help us when we're challenged in certain areas, to continue give us ideas, and then vice versa. It's this collaboration thing. It's not just for one person, but it's this rising tide rises all ships. I'm sure you guys probably founded on that principle too.
Oh yeah. Yeah. You used the right word. You said courage. And even when I was, starting my podcast 3 years ago, I would, have a guest come on. I'm like, look, my main intention here, whatever you decide to share, I'm sure it'll be valuable. We kind of vet them a little bit, just like I'm sure you guys do. But my main objective here is to transfer courage to the listener. I want them to know that if you can do it, they can do it. Because when I figured that out, if he can do it, if she can do it, I can do it. That one simple mindset shift was enough. Now, I'll still need more to carry me through, right? Motivation or inspiration is fleeting. I need tactics and strategies and real things and relationships to carry me forward. But that one piece of mindset shift of if they can do it, I can do it, and be able to get into a place where I'm listening to a podcast with Rachel and Bruce, and I'm getting, feedback from their incredible guests and show and changing my life financially or whatever. Okay, cool. If they can do it, I can do it, because courage is literally that, I think about that one lady, I'm gonna forget her name, but they did a documentary. I think she was the only person, but for sure the only female that swam from Cuba to Florida. Did you guys see this?
I've heard the story. I don't know
Yes.
her name. I don't know.
Okay, so I think it's on Netflix, but this is like the only TV type of things that I watch. The Crown, swimming across the freaking ocean. Like I just want like to beat my chest and go, yes, but when it took her like several times and almost died several times, but before she took off, each time she'd say, courage, courage. And it was just like, man, that is it. Like if you can, in the inside of you, believe, and it doesn't even have to be, if they can do it, I can do it. That's like an element of it, right? But if you can just believe in you to just take the next little step, not that the 20-year vision, multimillionaire, perfect little family with a perfect wife. And no. Just the next step. Like just believe you can do the next step. I promise you, lights out, it's over.
Mm-hmm. Oh,
awesome. This is one of the things on our financial side that I try to get through to our clients all the time, because they have all these fears of, whether you're on this side of the aisle or you're on this side of the aisle, and then social media and then television, everything's about grabbing eyeballs. And so everything's falling no matter what. It's just terrible. And the amount of people that think we're going to be in financial ruin in, the next 3 weeks, even, everything's going to collapse. And I'm saying, yeah. But you have to develop a strategy and a mindset that if it does all collapse, which by the way, it has happened in human history before, but humans are still around and in better shape than they were before.
Yeah.
So if you just say, I am going to survive and I'm going to figure it out no matter what happens, then why are you fearful? But the main reason they're fearful is because our financial services industry has put this idea of retirement into everybody's mindset. So it's like there's a final time that you're going to be a producer. And so people think that's a finite time. And so if that finite time is going to come down crashing, and now it's like, well, what do I do now? Well,
Right.
if you don't have this, if you don't have this stopping period, then why would you ever worry about anything? You just keep innovating, you keep changing, you keep
Right.
producing. Producers gain monetary capital. So what's the fear then in
Yeah.
that situation?
Yeah, Napoleon Hill breaks down, the 6 main factors of fear inside of Laws of Success. He wrote that before Think and Grow Rich, and some of that gets trickled into Think and Grow Rich. But he breaks down this concept of being 40 or 50 and like over the hill, and how this has just become normal to think in this way. And then of course, like you're talking about retirement, and I remember when my grandmother retired, from this big insurance company, and I was so excited. I'm like, you're free. You get to go do whatever. What are you going to go do? Because in her mind, it was like, I'm anxious. I don't want to retire because I don't want to sit on the porch. And I was like, no, forget the porch. What do you want to go do? And so she ended up going to Taiwan. She worked in an orphanage with like little kids for a couple, I can't remember how long, but like a long time, several months, and came back and served in our family and served in a church and all kinds of fun stuff that she's just excited about. And it's like, yes, but this concept of ending, or like what Napoleon Hill talks about, just like I'm over the hill, or I'm an old man now, or that's my old lady over there. It's just like all it is right here. And if I've got this in reverse, if I'm thinking, well, I'm going to live to 120 or 220, and even if I don't, like my mind isn't going to start breaking things down for me at age 40 or 65 or even 85. My grandmother's going to turn, I think she's going to be turning 82 this year. And she's like rocking and rolling. I'm talking about her being 102. And I keep her way busy because that's what's the purpose? What are we doing here? And I think that you did a beautiful job there of wrapping that up into the financial piece there, Bruce. It's like, there's no stopping point. We just get to keep building. We get to keep playing the game.
That's absolutely true. Man, I could talk about that for a little bit, but let's not. So I want to dig into your backstory, Chaz. From what I see, you were a millionaire by age 29 and multimillionaire by shortly after. I don't know the exact age. Can you just kind of walk us through your history? What made you
Yeah.
go into entrepreneurship? What did you do? And just lead us through your story, and specifically, why did you get started?
Yeah. Well, I'll drop a bomb on you first. We won't talk about it in this show, but maybe leave it hanging for the second one. Is that I grew up single mom family. So I didn't know my dad. I didn't know who my dad was, and my dad didn't even know I existed. And I met him when I was 24. I've got an amazing relationship with him now, and so that's the bomb drop. The piece inside of that is that obviously there's identity that's associated to that. My last name Wolfe is his last name, and so I've not always been Chaz Wolfe, and so there's been an entire journey of Chaz Wolfe becoming Chaz Wolfe, which has been a big part of the success. That's kind of why I dropped that first and saying it's not just because I met him and other people who haven't met their dad in my scenario can't be successful. No. It's this is just the part of the story for me that God has revealed just some cool things for me along the way that were associated to him, but really they were for me. Like yes, he was the instrument or the element of the story, but I was becoming who God has for me to be, and I still am. And so
awesome.
all that to say, I'm 24, turning 25. I purchased my first, actual business. I had done, lawn care and landscaping and sold stuff door to door. From like little, like
You're an
if we needed
entrepreneurial
basketball shoes, I
kid.
sold candy bars, and that's what we did, So,
Yeah.
but bought my first legitimate business. It was a franchise, 24 turning 25. That was an edible arrangements franchise. And basically 4 years later, I had 7 locations in 3 states. We were operating, 60, 70 employees. On the holidays around like Valentine's Day, we would have between like 550 and 650 employees for those like 4 days in those 7 locations.
Yeah.
Just absolutely insane and incredible. But that was from like 24 to 29, 25 to 29. And
Chaz,
I
you
still
just gave
owned.
me a little bit of a flashback. I was HR for a little bit and in retail, and I
Okay.
know the hiring
Oh
push
yeah.
that goes into
During those times.
doing that, but my goodness, to go from 60 to, did you say 600 employees for 4 days?
Yes.
That's insane. So,
Yes. And it absolutely was insane. The few the grays that I have here, I believe are from that.
that's
But
awesome.
all good.
You don't have
Um,
as much, you have nothing on me,
yeah.
Chaz.
You obviously have way more wisdom than I do, so we'll take it like
I
that.
call
But
them wisdom hairs. So there we go. Go
there you
ahead.
go. That's awesome. And so I still own one of those today. I've exited six of them. But that for me, so I've been a franchisee for Edible Arrangements for 13 years, almost 14, shoot, maybe 15 years, something right around there. And that's been a huge launching pad for me of learning, obviously systems and process and developing teams in multiple different cities and states and doing things remote and all kinds of amazing things that I've had to learn. And so, from that moment though, I've got a real estate portfolio. I've built a construction company. I've got some investments in equipment and we rent all that out and all kinds of fun stuff there. And then of course, really gathering the kings is that, most people might say passion project or the thing that I think that I'll do for the rest of my life. Like this is the work that I was made for, And so I'll have all kinds of other businesses and investments because I love the game. But like what wakes me up, what gets me excited, is podcasts or, doing things like this inside of our event that gets to talk like this, and specifically be able to help people, live the exceptional life. I can think of members that, 2 and 3 years ago, before they knew anything about Gathering the Kings. And it wasn't before they knew Chaz. Yeah, maybe I was the catalyst of who they met first, but as they've joined the community, they've changed dramatically. They've leveled up in so many different areas. I'm thinking of one member. I was just kind of ranting and raving about him just the other day because I've watched him go from, smoking cigarettes and drinking energy drinks and not being around his family and, like just striving, like not even striving, I don't think, to now almost 3 years later, he runs ultra marathons, doesn't smoke, takes his health very seriously, prioritizes his family, has tripled his business. It's just been like, this is it, guys, and I can go down the Rolodex of all these people that have done this. And it's not because of Chaz. It's because of the environment of just winning. And when you step into a room of winners and you look around, you're like, oh, well, if he can do it, I can do it. Just like we've been talking about, so that's what fires me up the most.
That is profound. I think it's really exciting to me that I have been in a space working on legacy work, which is actually why we met in the first place. I'm
Yeah.
talking about just family guidance system, talking about the things that make your legacy really matter.
Right.
And what's really interesting is in this legacy coaching and creation space that I have with people, I hear so many times the story that resonates with almost all of them. And it's that I took ownership of these certain areas of my life and now I feel better at this age. I feel younger now than I did before. I have more energy and drive now than I did before. I want more for my family than I ever did before. I want more for my business growth, even though I'm at a level that's higher, that I've achieved more than I ever did before. Now I want more than I ever did before. It's really fascinating how many times I hear that over and over. And I think there's something core inside of our psyche, our DNA maybe, that when we realize that there is the capacity not just to kind of dwindle and settle, but to really be able to fire on all cylinders and be in a position
Yeah.
of absolutely growing in all these areas, that you can do it. And it's really exciting.
Yeah. I mean, Bruce said something a few minutes ago around this like fear and, what if it all falls apart, and I think that a lot of people like genuinely think about that. It's not that I don't think about that, but then if that fear rises up, it's like, well, I've developed skills and I've developed a network and I've developed things that even if it was all taken away from me today, I have full confidence that I would just go do it again. And so when you have that level of history of winning, and then the confidence to go, oh no, I just totally believe in me. I totally believe in Julie, my wife, and what we would do together. As long as that's solid, it literally doesn't matter. But it takes a while to get there. It takes like a history and be able to look back and go, okay, actually, no, I made it through that. Like you said, Bruce, earlier, no, we made it through. Humans are still here. But what about for me individually? When I can look back at my own history and look at the winning, even if it's not perfect, it doesn't have to be perfect. I used to teach salespeople a long, long time ago. And I would tell them to, especially if they were dealing with confidence, they used to be able to sell, and then all of a sudden they're in a slump. I'd have them, write down on a piece of paper, just, 3, 4, 5 things that they're super proud of. Maybe nothing to do with winning an award or a certain commission that they've earned or something, but, maybe they said that they were going to take their kids out and they did what they said they were going to do. And they were just super proud of that. Like, we need to focus on those. That's the winning, and if you can do those things, then surely you can do this. And it's just that reframe that Bruce was talking about earlier to get rid of that fear.
So I think we could go in so many different directions with this conversation. I mean, we could talk about real estate and strategy and tactic around real estate
Right.
investing. We could talk about business growth specifically. I think something that's really standing out to me that I'd like to dig into just a little bit. You mentioned that it's not about just the business thing. It's really about people, relationships, and strategy, which is the same thing that is in business, which is the same thing that's in your marriage, same thing in your health. It's people, relationships, and strategy. And I
Yeah.
think something that's top of mind for me that I think would be really helpful for our listeners as well. I'm going to ask you a specific question, but how did you go from being in a position of Dan Sullivan talks about it being a ceiling of complexity. I'm sure that you've heard this term. Are you familiar with Dan Sullivan,
Yep.
strategic coach? So he talks about this idea that you go to the maximum or the max of the capability that you currently have, and you realize that you need something more in order to get to the next level. I love
Right.
his book, 10x is easier than 2x, because you
Mhm.
have to think completely differently to
Yeah.
build 10 times the vision that you currently have rather than just incrementally adjusting or adding, you're multiplying.
Yeah.
So when it comes to people and being able to go from a one franchise to a multi-franchise location to being able to go from 60 regular employees to 600 in a 4-day window to back down again, you obviously had to rely on people a lot. And I don't just mean employees, but I mean managers and directors of different things. You absolutely could not be the person doing all the things. You couldn't personally train all the employees. You couldn't
Right.
personally sit in all the conversations to hire them all. Can you just speak to that component of reaching that ceiling of complexity in terms of growth? How do you need to, how does somebody who wants to grow need to think differently about the people, relationships, and strategy specifically in the people component of being able to expand teams to expand their capability?
Yeah. I'm going to answer your question, but before I do, I want to give the listener what I would suggest them to do to be able to think differently for themselves
Mm,
first.
that's awesome.
And I love that too, because you're talking about just, that glass ceiling or to be, I know that there's another level, but I don't know how to get there. And inside of Gathering the Kings, we kind of use a little bit of like a roadmap, like to the exceptional life. And it starts with the power of the community. And I talk about the community being like this power source. And oftentimes, most times, entrepreneurs are isolated to a degree, even if they've got a couple of folks around them that they can hash things out with. It's not like so deep where they can like really wrestle life and business and all the things. And so they're kind of over here by themselves, kind of flailing around. And we take that person and you just like get plugged up. Like just imagine you're a light bulb or a lamp, and you get plugged into the power source, and then boom, the light comes on. And that's what it takes in order to be able to, for you, the listener right now, to think on that next level. And whether that's around people or around money or around systems or technology or your marriage or whatever the component is we talk about getting plugged up to the power source. And that's why GTK exists, is because we've got folks from all these different backgrounds, all these different, industries. We're all entrepreneurs, but we want to all win in all areas. And so great. So let's force each other to be able to like work on the next level. So that's kind of step two then, is I need to build the next version of me. So I'm going to use the power of the community in order to build the next version of me. What you're talking about is that next level of thinking. You can't think on the next level without the next version of you. And so there
Hmm.
has to be things inside of you that either you let go of or that you accept in order for you to move to the next level. And so you use the community or the power, the inspiration, the motivation, the energy, the strategies, the tactics, whatever, the relationships, to be able to build the next version of you so that you can start winning in all areas. And so now they kind of got the cloud picture for you, coming down a little more strategic to your question. For me, recognizing the actual person was a game changer, because I'm pretty, I'm pretty fast moving. I'm pretty ambitious. Like it'd be super easy for me to be transactional and just, kind of use people and move on. Right. And I think that happens a lot in times in big business. I've been part of big businesses that, people are numbers for all intents and purposes, right? And we've all probably experienced that. And so that power right there for you to be able to transition that number to a name, and not just a name, but like, them and I know their situation and I might know their kids' names. And I mean, I was doing this even as a 22, 23-year-old sales leader in a big corporation. Like my little team, we were just different. I knew them. I knew what what moved them. Because in order to like press hard, 200 plus cold calls every single day, I didn't want to just whip the chains. I wanted them to move the needle like in their own life. And so I had to like get in, and I knew their situation, and I knew their life, and I knew their wife or their husband, and I knew their kids, and what motivated them. Because when they were sitting at the desk in front of me making cold calls and going, this sucks, hundreds of times before the next sale, I needed more stickiness, And so I would say that whether it's getting 600 people to show up and sort strawberries and deliver baskets, or whether it's getting someone to push harder on a phone call, it takes knowing the human, the person, so being able to see, the other person, is huge. And I don't know if I was like naturally like that. Maybe I was, and then just didn't really know that until I experienced the number. And I was like, that doesn't feel good. And I didn't need like, oh, Chaz, we really, you're so awesome. And I didn't necessarily need that. I'm a high performer. I'm a high achiever. I'm going to do it no matter what. But when I experienced the lack of it, it was like, ooh, it was obvious. And so for me, if I can see somebody, if I can see my wife, if I can see my kids, if I can see my business partner, if I can see a client, if I can see myself when I look at my health, like that's what it is, right? If I can like actually see the person, then I can like be open. We can have a conversation, and it can be real and authentic, and we can be sticky together. I would much rather sign up less people to Gathering the Kings and us do life for the next 20 years together than sign up 5, 10, 30 times the amount of people, make so much more money, but then have no relationships at the end of it. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. I think that's so powerful. I mean, when you really think about it, you think about people who go through their whole life, and you get to the end of life and you hear the question about, what are your regrets? What do you wish that you had done more? And I know I'm talking on the fear side of things, and this isn't the, what I wish, what I'm reaching towards. But I think that moment of truth comes to somebody really wants to be known. They want to know others. They want to have real relationships. They want friends that care about them. And I think that we long for that type of relationship. And yet sometimes it can feel like we just have to do all these other things rather than focus in on the thing that really brings true satisfaction and really helps other people grow as well. So I read another book real recently, and I'm trying to remember the name of it. The Ruthless Elimination of Hurry.
Oh, I've got a crazy story about that, but yeah, tell me your story.
It's just beautiful to recognize how necessary it is to slow down and to really practice the stillness and the slowness of seeing people for who they are. And so that was just a nod back to exactly what you just shared.
Yeah, well, and it can be for a fast moving, and I'll tell my story about that book here in a second because it's funny, but for a fast moving entrepreneur, the purpose of, like you're saying, slowing down so that I can see them, so that I can connect, so that it makes it meaningful. Yes, long terms, there's stickiness, meaning like I have less retention issues, less attrition, whether it be employees or clients. Like there's all types of business reasons to be a better human and a better leader. But even if none of those things existed, this is another human on the other side of it. And spiritually, it's like, look, love God, love others. Like it, like just close the book.
Yes.
It can get real simple. I've got 4 kids under the age of 11 and under, and that's the message. Love God, love others. Like, how do we figure that out? Because if we can figure those 2 things out at a level of excellence, the world will happen. The world is your oyster. So backtrack on the ruthless. I'm going to say the name of the title again because it's just that much more funny. The Ruthless Elimination of Hurry. I find out this book. I'm like, okay, that's like the opposite of anything associated to Chaz. I don't want to go anywhere near slow or anything. So, okay, fine. I probably need some of this. And so I'm hopping in the car. I'm driving on a road trip, and I've got somebody with me in the car, and we're going to listen to this book. And
Chaz, I already know where this is going. I'm not gonna spill the beans, but I am almost sure that what you're about to say is exactly what happened to me. Go ahead.
Oh yeah. Well, so I hit play, and it's on 2-speed. It's always on 2-speed. I love 2-speed. I'm talking on 2-speed right now. This is the level that I operate in. It's always 2-speed, baby.
This is exactly right.
And I
Yes.
start listening and I'm going, oh my goodness, I am listening to the ruthless elimination of hurry in 2-speed. Wow, I may have missed the point, So I started it over. I took it down to 1-speed, and it was like patience and like really working through how slow this guy was talking. But I got it. And then as it was over, I hit the replay button on 2-speed, and it felt so much better. But I got it twice.
You know what? That's exactly what I had. I was like, I am hurrying to eliminate hurry, and
yes,
like, this is ridiculous. Anyway,
yes.
Actually, also heard about the book about 10 years before, and was like, yeah, I'm not interested. Not
Get to
my
that later.
Not my jam. Yeah. Anyways, okay, so huge shout out to the book. Chaz, we're rocking into 45 minutes into this conversation so far. So if you had, I mean, I have a question for you. Bruce, do you have any questions at this point? Because I want to make sure that I do not barrel
Come on, Bruce,
through
the
to
extroverts
end.
over here are we're flying away.
And I'm fine. I'm fine with that. I think I've mastered the ruthlessness of elimination of hurry in my life, but I still see it creep up in me from childhood, like um, eating as fast as possible, and so that you can get out to your next job
Yep.
at 12 years old, or eating as fast as possible so you can do your homework as fast as possible so you could go run with your friends as fast as possible.
Right.
And that, I don't know when it actually hit me, but it hit me probably 15 to 18 years ago. So if Rachel has, color of wisdom,
70-year-old hair, that's what I have.
yeah, I don't know what you call me, because but it really, there is really something to say about wisdom, but or length of time attaining wisdom, but wisdom can also be obtained by what you were saying is being in the room with people. You accelerate that wisdom.
Oh yeah.
And through the relationships you have with other people, relationships you have through God. I think that's another, way to accelerate wisdom.
Yeah.
But as I'm listening to all this, I just think the number one thing that if people can eliminate in their life, to make them live the life that they want to live, is fear. I mean, that's the absolute. I mean, I might be wrong here, but I'll keep trying to figure out if I'm wrong. That's fine. That's part of the process. But fear actually brings a crushing weight of inactivity.
Yeah.
And you guys were talking about, not being in such a hurry, but then fear brings you to there. So there's a medium in the middle of that brings peace to a person.
Yeah.
And so that's what I was thinking about. As I was listening to you describe that.
Well, I mean, I feel like there's so many connections here. You can be afraid of losing money and you make certain financial decisions because you're in fear, which will also lead you to the feeling of lack and scarcity. You can make the decision for fear of missing out. I'm not going to have enough money. I'm not going to enjoy my life enough. So I've got to spend it all now. Well, that's going to lead you to a different kind of fear later where you don't have anything because you've spent it all. Or you heard about this investment somebody else was doing and you have FOMO and you're in a position of that's another fear. And now I need to do this thing without the right knowledge, without the right preparation, without the right context, and jump into something that was someone else's journey, not my own journey. And all of those are fear-based. But if instead, I mean, the Bible talks over and over, fear not, fear not, fear not, for I'm with you. There's so many places where we're told to be strong and have courage. And I think courage doesn't mean that you don't have fear. It means you're acting in the face of that anyways. And I think the confidence comes after you've made the choice that you knew you needed to do, even if you weren't fearless in making that choice.
Yeah, it's really interesting because this is kind of related to this, but you have to actually face your fears to realize that fear really meant nothing at the very beginning.
Right.
And once you get over that, though, then you can actually start to get that big flywheel that you can't move first. To get it moving, then you can't stop it.
Yeah.
It's the same thing that I think one of the major things. Oh, Chaz, you don't know, probably don't know, but I was in education for 17 years, and one of the things that drove me crazy all the time is this idea is giving kids self-esteem.
Mm.
We got to give kids. No, you don't give kids self-esteem. You actually, what you do is you put them in the position to accomplish something on
Yeah.
their own, and they receive self-esteem from that.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
And it's the same thing with the fear. You actually have to experience it, but many people will not are in so much in fear that they don't even act.
Yeah.
So they don't even overcome it, and then you get that flywheel moving, and you overcome it one time. You think, what the heck was I so fearful about?
Yep.
Because even if I fail, I love the situation where you said you can win without being perfect,
Right.
because I'm gonna carry that with me now, because athletics prove that all the time. Basketball, there's never a time where they never miss a shot, or
Right.
football, they are baseball. The
Yeah.
best players in the world have failed 70% of the time.
Yeah.
Entertainers, when they're singing a song, they don't hit every note properly.
Right.
I mean, it's just, and they're the highest paid people on the planet,
Yep.
entertainers and athletes. So people need to carry that fear is okay. And I don't mean fear as a motivator, although many people use it as a motivator, but
Sure.
to actually embrace that fear and realize now you can overcome it. You've done something, and now you've gotten that self-esteem. That why are you even worried about fear?
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. You can look back, that self-esteem you're talking about from the kids is the conversation we were having earlier around looking back at the history. David Goggins says reaching into the cookie jar and pulling out, the win from before. And if I did that, then I can do this. And the cool thing about, because you brought up kids, Bruce, the one thing that we do with our kids that it's not unique to us, but I'm sure we learned it from somewhere, but is that after they've accomplished that thing that you put before them, you give them the chance to accomplish it. I don't then say, I'm so proud of you. I ask them how they feel about it and if they're proud of themselves. And then I might say, I'm proud of you too. But I don't want them waiting around for my validation. They need to validate it themselves. They need to figure out that even at 8 years old, I felt great about that. And they need to not only get the self-esteem, but then put a mental like point to it and go, ooh, I like that. That feels good to me. When I checked the box, I did what I said I was going to do. I did it with excellence. I tried my best. Whatever those things are, depending upon what they accomplished, it's like, no, I can feel really great about that. And then for them to be able to experience that as a kid, and then for me as their father to just be able to basically just create the facilitation of that. I didn't actually have to give them anything, like you're saying. They were able to give it to themselves, which then prepares them to be in these shoes like you and I are later down the road, because I'm not going to be able to do everything for them later down the road. They're going to have to do it for themselves.
I'm wrestling over the articulation of this thing I'm about to say, so it's a little bit of verbal processing. But the book Hunt, Gather, Parent is bringing some of these ideas together along with something else. So in our family values, we specifically listed freedom first and then responsibility. And this idea of responsibility being I need to fulfill my obligations. So meaning I have responsibility and I fulfill these things that I've committed to. And freedom, we defined as not just the freedom to speak, think, and act as I choose, but we added to that the ability to choose my obligations. I think a lot of times people think freedom means this license to do whatever I want. Well, the real truth is, my husband Lucas says this beautifully, and he shares it very often during our family Shabbats on Friday nights. But if you have the bum on the street has lots of freedom, but who actually has more freedom? The person who's chosen to have a career or start a business, they have obligations to customers and clients, they have obligations to their family, they have bills they have to pay. That person has chosen obligations, but they're much more free because they have trained, they have put banks or some kind of a channel on their freedom. They've focused the light into a laser. They've taken the, swamp and focused it into a river. They've channeled this thing. They've
Right.
made the ability for it to flow. And that connecting over to Bruce, your idea about not giving kids self-esteem. I heard this in the book as I was reading it today, but parents today are so frazzled thinking we've got to give our kids a billion toys. We have to give them all this educational stimulation and teach them everything verbally. And then thirdly, that we need to praise them every single thing. Good job, good job, good job, good job. And they end up, we handicap them because they're looking for what do I need to do in order to get the good job? Look at me, look at me, look at me. Instead of having that intrinsic
Right.
understanding that they have an obligation, they're part of your family, they serve others because they're part of the family. That allows them to build true freedom, which is also self-esteem because they're building their capabilities. Anyway, so
Yeah, it's good.
let's let's bring this to a landing. So, Chaz, from everything that we've talked about today, if you just had one piece of wisdom to share to somebody who says, I really do want to grow, I'm doing well in life, but I want to up level in all of these areas. I want to grow in my business. I want to grow in my capabilities. I want to grow in my walk with the Lord, grow in my relationships.
Yeah.
What would you tell them
Well,
if
I would
you,
tell them that the same thing that causes them to be successful in the one area or two areas that they already have achieved success, and that's definiteness of purpose, a clear identification of what they want, followed by clear plans to get it, coupled with accountability and community and other habit forces that are in nature to be able to hold on to it until you achieve it, persistence and resilience. And so if the target is to win in all areas, and this is basically where I was many years ago, is like, oh, okay, I'm going to win in business or I'm going to make more money or whatever. Okay, great. If I can just raise my target up a little bit from just this one factor of life to I want to win in all areas, that now becomes my definite chief aim is I'm going to win in all areas. Okay, well, what does that mean? Well, I want to level up my marriage. I want to level up my money. I want to level up my business. I want to level up my health. I want to level up my faith, my lifestyle, and we consider lifestyle are the things that bring us joy. And so, okay, great. So put all those out on paper and get it clear. What does the next step look like? Or maybe the next 2, 3, 4, 5. What does the picture of 3 to 5, even maybe even 10 years look like? Get it really, really clear, and then create a plan. Get around other people that can hold you accountable to that plan and also help you adjust that plan, and then stick to it. Like that's the roadmap to any success.
that's awesome. That's awesome. So we know where to find you, but I want you to tell us all about Gathering the Kings and how to connect in. But before I do, I'm not looking on Facebook here, but on LinkedIn or on YouTube, we've got Wealth, Wisdom, Financial. You might know who they are. He
Yeah.
says, my wife Amanda and I are glad to be part of the Gathering the Kings community and love seeing Chaz was going to be on and with some of the best infinite banking practitioners I know, he said, and then healthy habits in mind and financially is so important. Real relationship. Funny that you bring that up. I don't know what that specific comment was for. It was mentioned in the GTK community yesterday. Maybe it's a God moment. And also in our family, our mantra is Neelys do hard things. We don't just sit on the sidelines. So
Yeah.
just wanted
Yeah.
to
That's
give a shout out to
Mr.
to
Brandon.
you.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
awesome.
He said that he was going to be able to meet up with you guys hopefully next week at some sort of conference that you guys are all going to. So, but yeah, no, I think the opportunity for folks listening right now, if you don't have a community, if you don't have people that you can talk to about business, marriage, family, health, faith, lifestyle, all these things, then maybe Gathering the Kings is right for you. I don't know, but going to gatheringthekings.com and taking an application there, and we go through that specifically with me. I'm not too high on the chain to personally interview because harmony inside of a mastermind is by far one of the most important elements, and for it to continue to work and for that culture to be exactly what we want it to be. In addition to that, I would just say that if you're listening to this right now and you're an entrepreneur and you've got kids, we've recently launched for members only right now, but it's about to go public. We've launched GXT, which is Generation Next, and we've been doing live calls, and we created a little spot in our app for a community for tweens and teens, basically 8 to 18. And we've been helping them learn success principles, understanding how to make money as a kid, even launch a business, all kinds of fun stuff. And so if that's interesting to you as well, maybe go to the website. There's nothing there quite yet because it's been for members only right now, but you can still inquire, via the application and booking a call, and we can help you learn more about that if that's interesting to you.
Oh, Chaz, that's awesome. I love that you shared that. I really encourage you to go to gatheringthekings.com, check out the work that they're doing. Chaz has got some fantastic podcasts. He's got great materials. You're going to be super inspired by what you see there. So I encourage you to check it out and to plug in. And Chaz, I'm just so glad to be able to have you on the show and share Gathering the Kings with our people because you guys are doing some powerful work.
Yeah, appreciate the
And I
opportunity to
love
be
that.
here. And for the listener, if you're still paying attention, give these guys a 5-star review on whatever platform you guys are watching. It actually matters. And so comment, review, share, all the fun stuff. I know you hear it all the time, but if you found this valuable, if you're still listening now, then you've obviously found Rachel and Bruce to be valuable. So pay them that 5-star review. It will be more helpful to them than you realize.
Awesome. Thank you, Chaz. That's awesome.
Thanks,
So
Jess.
in closing, please go check out Chaz Wolfe and his work at Gathering the Kings. So gatheringthekings.com. The link is in the show notes. It's in all the places you're watching live. It'll be in the blog and podcast show notes as well. So in closing, please remember success leaves clues. So model the successful few, not the crowd, and build a life and business you